everybody. Drew King, Hidden History New York. Today we're down in Hunts Point, down in the Bronx, and we're going to be checking out a rather unique section of the area here. As many of you know, Hunts Point is a very industrial area with nothing but warehouses and depots and factories, etc. But today we're going to find out about something else a little more unique. It's Joseph Rodman Drake Park, and in the middle of the park there's a cemetery. Who's buried here? Let's find out today on Hidden History New York.
Joseph Rodman Drake Park, Cemetery and Enslaved African Burial Ground. The property of Joseph Rodman Drake Park in Hunts Point area of the Bronx is located in what was once Weckquaesgeek Indian settlement. In the late 17th century, Thomas Hunt, for whom the neighborhood was named, acquired a large estate that encompassed this modest site and built his stone residence, the Grange, down by the shoreline. The Hunt property would later serve as a ritual childhood retreat for the Hunt family friend Joseph Rodman Drake, born in New York City on August 7, 1795. Joseph Rodman Drake was a distant descendant of the famous 16th century navigator Sir Francis Drake. Orphaned early and raised in Manhattan, he showed early promise as a poet, and his verse made reference to the natural beauty of the Bronx. In 1813, Drake began studying medicine with local doctors, and around this time befriended the poet Fritz Green Halleck. From March to July of 1819, they collaborated on the Croker Papers. This series of satirical poems lampooning city officials was published in the New York Evening Post. Although he worked as a physician, Drake was best known as a celebrated author of poems such as the Culprit Fay and the American Flag. When he died of tuberculosis at the age of 25 on September 21, 1820, Drake was laid here to rest in the Hunt family burial ground north of the Grange. Halleck, whose sculpture stands in Central Park, wrote the epitaph on Drake's tombstone. "Green be the turf above thee, friend of my better days. None knew thee but to love thee, nor named thee but to praise." Drake's widow compiled and published posthumously a collection of poems in 1835. The burial ground at Drake Park consists of more than 40 markers, some dating to the early 18th century, which includes names such as Hunt, Leggett, Willett, all families associated with the settlement and development of the Bronx. These streets near the cemetery are named for prominent poets including Drake, Halleck, John Greenleaf Whittier, and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. In 1905, the cemetery was saved from destruction by local literary enthusiasts. 4 years later, Parks acquired the property. Located south of Drake Cemetery, on a dry mound in the surrounding wetlands by Old Hunts Point Road, was the slave burial ground. Separated from their masters' graves, dozens of enslaved Africans were interred beyond the consecrated grounds of Drake Cemetery. These burials, marked by simple gravestones here, lie the nanny, the coachman, farm laborer, a woodcutter, drover, blacksmith, cook, groom, carpenter, and seamstress, whose unpaid labor contributed to Hunts Point's large, profitable estates from colonial times till 1827, when slavery was abolished in New York State. According to the 1800 federal census, 44 enslaved Africans lived in Hunts Point Peninsula. The last burial in the slave burial ground reportedly occurred in the 1840s, when the former Leggett slave Aunt Rose was laid to rest next to the enslaved family members and friends of whom she grew up. The slave burial ground was graded away and covered with dirt, gravel, asphalt, sometime in the early years of the 20th century, succumbing to roadway construction and development prior to the park's establishment. In 2013, a local history education project conducted with schoolchildren of nearby Public School 48 unearthed much of this forgotten historical chapter. The park was named in honor of Joseph Rodman Drake in 1915. That year, the Bronx Society of Arts and Science installed a 7-foot-high marble shaft inscribed with Halleck's words to mark Drake's grave. the Society placed another tablet in Drake's honor near the Lurieland Stuff Mill in the New York Botanical Garden. A 1934 survey at the site indicated a stone dwelling, a metal garage, and a tool shed on the grounds of the park, perhaps vestiges of a caretaker's home and former estate. These features were no longer in place when the major renovation was undertaken in 1953. At that time, an iron picket fence was installed around the cemetery. Benches were placed along the paths, and cinder sidewalks were built along the perimeter. In 1961, many of the gravestones of the central cemetery were vandalized and subsequently stabilized. Some were removed, and acid rain and weathering have further eroded the remaining markers. As the surrounding neighborhood has grown, predominantly industrial, the park has provided an oasis with venerable trees, a pastoral beauty, and a historic graveyard with an enduring connection to the origins of the Bronx. This information was provided by the City of New York Parks and Recreation, May 2014, www.nyc.gov/parks, a link which you will find in the description below.
So how about that? I hope you guys found this video informational, and if you liked it, please give us a like and subscribe. And I appreciate everybody who's been watching the series, and we intend to keep bringing you more and more great content. So from Hidden History New York and Drew King, have a great day.